In his presidential campaign, Donald Trump said very clearly that he would release the Epstein files. My response, Mr. President, do it. Do what you promised the American people you would do, and stop trying to deflect attention away from what you promised. Be transparent the way you promised you would be. Tell the truth like you promised. Because hiding whatever he's hiding with the Epstein files is not the first time, to say the least, that he has lied to the American people. He promised that his big, beautiful bill wouldn't touch Medicaid. Instead, the bill is going to take away Medicaid from 17 million Americans. Why is he slashing Medicaid? So we can give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and $900 billion in tax breaks to the corporate world. In other words, he is making his very rich friends.
Donald Trump has once again plunged headfirst into a crisis entirely of his own making, picking a fight he can't possibly win and doing it at the worst imaginable time. And let's be real, Stephen Colbert has never been shy about roasting our paper-thin-skinned, authoritarian aspiring former president. But tonight was different. This wasn't just a clapback. Colbert dismantled Trump with surgical precision and the blunt force of a wrecking ball. Why? Because Trump, drunk on his own ego, was strutting around like a grade school bully who just stole lunch money, bragging that he'd pressured a corporation into firing Colbert by threatening to torpedo their billion-dollar merger. That petty victory lap, however, was nothing compared to what came next. Colbert went straight for the jugular, dragging into the spotlight the most toxic, radioactive scandal of Trump's career, his long, sordid, and well-documented ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And here's the delicious twist. Colbert's counterpunch wasn't just sharp, it was devastating. Tonight, we're peeling back every layer of this saga. The Epstein connection Trump has tried to bury for years. The corporate backroom maneuvers aimed at silencing dissent. And the moment Colbert flipped the script so hard it left Trump exposed and reeling. Before we dive in, smash that like button if you believe in fearless, unflinching commentary that calls power to account no matter the backlash. And make sure you're subscribed. Your support keeps this fight alive, raw and unfiltered. To set the tone for Colbert's blistering takedown, let's turn to the man who summed it up perfectly. Bernie Sanders, dropping a truth bomb that lays bare exactly how this moment captures everything rotten about Donald Trump's war on the free press.
Presidential campaign, Donald Trump said very clearly that he would release the Epstein files. My response, Mr. President, do it. Do what you promised the American people you would do, and stop trying to deflect attention away from what you promised. Be transparent the way you promised you would be. Tell the truth like you promised. Because hiding whatever he's hiding with the Epstein files is not the first time, to say the least, that he has lied to the American people. He promised that his big, beautiful bill wouldn't touch Medicaid. Instead, the bill is going to take away Medicaid from 17 million Americans. Why is he slashing Medicaid? So we can give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and $900 billion in tax breaks to the corporate world. In other words, he is making his very rich friends much richer while making life harder for working families. But that is not all. Trump is attacking every single day the very foundations of American democracy. He is usurping the responsibilities of Congress and is illegally refusing to allocate the money that Congress appropriated for education, housing, and other basic needs. He is ignoring court decisions that he doesn't like and attacking universities who are teaching courses he doesn't like. He's going after law firms that represented clients he doesn't like. Further, he doesn't like a free press and he doesn't want criticism. He has sued ABC, Meta, the Wall Street Journal, and CBS, and he has cut funding for PBS and NPR. Enough is enough. Too many Americans have fought and died to defend freedom and democracy, to defend the First Amendment and the right to dissent. That is what makes America great. Whether Donald Trump likes it or not, we are and will remain a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not a country run by a bunch of billionaire oligarchs who want to move this country to an authoritarian society.
This Epstein scandal isn't just about Donald Trump's sleazy personal ties or his desperate attempts to bury the truth. It's bigger, darker, and far more dangerous. It's the ultimate playbook for how the Republican machine shields its own, twisting the law, shredding the rules, and weaponizing every ounce of power to protect the wealthy and well-connected. For Trump, this isn't strategy. It's muscle memory. Distract, deflect, destroy anyone who dares to call him out. Stephen Colbert did exactly that, telling the truth without flinching, and right on cue, Trump scrambled to change the subject. His show of strength? Two pathetic truth social posts. The first was a petty juvenile swipe at Colbert. The second, a cheap culture war stunt meant to throw red meat to the MAGA base. Both blew up in his face. Trump strutted like a mob boss after a hit, bragging that Colbert was on the chopping block, sneering about his lack of talent, and even dragging Jimmy Fallon into it. Then came the racist dog whistle, demanding the Washington Commanders revert to the Redskins, his go-to move to keep his base riled. Colbert didn't just brush it off, he turned it into a weapon. On air, he tied Trump's tantrum straight back to the Epstein scandal, roasting him with a savage bit about renaming the team the Washington Epsteins, complete with a mocking logo aimed squarely at Trump's notorious friend. And then came the kill shot, a sharp, cold, dismissive, go with yourself. It landed like a punch to the jaw. In his first monologue after the cancellation news, Colbert didn't just tear into Trump. He went after CBS and Paramount for bowing to him in a backroom deal. Trump's vendetta against Colbert is nothing new. It's part of his long-running campaign to make examples of his critics. But Jon Stewart wasn't having it. In his own blistering monologue, Stewart ripped into the absurdity of any institution thinking it can appease Trump by sacrificing its own. What idiots are you, he demanded, comparing it to Columbia University selling out its students to please a man who once incited an armed mob against his own vice president. The truth is simple. You can't make Trump happy. You can only humiliate yourself trying. And that's exactly what Paramount has done. By putting profits above principles, they handed Trump a trophy and weakened the press's power. Protecting the bottom line means nothing if it comes at the cost of the truth. Colbert's success never came from coddling Trump's fragile ego. It came from telling the truth loudly and unapologetically, even if his show is taken off the air. This fight is far bigger than one late-night host. Trump will keep searching for targets, desperate to puff himself up, but it only works if we let him. Now is the time to push back. Stand together, refuse to be bullied, because once the media stops letting corporate CEOs dictate what's said, printed, or even thought, the spell breaks. This is the moment to resist, and as Adam Schiff warns, the stakes for free speech and real accountability have never been higher.
CBS itself said that the litigation was absolutely baseless. Now, why was it baseless? Because CBS has a right to edit their interviews of someone the way they choose, and some disgruntled other candidate can't complain about an editorial decision made with respect to someone else's interview. So there was no basis for this litigation. And if that's the case, then why did CBS settle? And in that settlement, why did CBS agree to pay Donald Trump $16 million? Well, the answer can be found in CBS and its parent Paramount wanting that merger to go through with Skydance. That merger is worth about $8 billion. So 16 million against 8 billion is not very much. But settling a frivolous lawsuit where you're paying off the president, well, what does that really look like? What is that really? Stephen Colbert had the answer on Monday of last week. That's right, Stephen called this a big fat bribe. And sadly, I think that's exactly what this was. But of course, that must have prompted a reaction not only from the president and the administration, but also concern, alarm with Skydance and Paramount. It was the very next day that the CEO of Skydance had a meeting with the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr. The FCC, which is in a position to hold up this merger. So the chronology is this. On Monday, Colbert calls this payoff a big fat bribe. That is the 16 million CBS is paying Donald Trump to make that frivolous case go away. On Tuesday, Skydance CEO meets with the head of FCC that could hold up the deal. And on Wednesday, Colbert is told that the show is being canceled. And on Thursday, he announces the cancellation. So, is there any merit to CBS' claim that this is purely financial? The circumstantial evidence would say there isn't a whole lot of merit there. Certainly not with the timing of the decision. Now, it is true that late night comedy ain't what it used to be in terms of viewership, as lots of people have moved on to streaming services, particularly young people that watch late night. There are less viewers than there used to be, but there's still a lot of viewers. And the top-rated show was the one that CBS just canceled. It's also instructive to look at May of this year, when Paramount CEO was asked about the late night show with Stephen Colbert. And he was already talking about how they would have contract talks in the following year, that is next year, and that CBS felt it was in a good negotiating position with Stephen Colbert. There was no suggestion then that they were entertaining a cancellation of the show. So what happened between May and this announcement last Thursday that they're canceling the show? Well, the merger, the desperation to get that merger done. So this certainly, at least in terms of the timing of canceling the show, seems to be driven by a desire of these two companies to merge and all the money that is on the line. But what is being sacrificed here is the freedom of the press. You can imagine what Donald Trump's reaction was to the cancellation of Colbert. Here it is.
In what may stand as one of the most brazen and shameless acts of political concealment in modern American history, Donald Trump once again sits at the center of a storm, not one sparked by policy or leadership, but by rotting secrets, high society entanglements, and sordid associations that should have ended his public career long ago. Years after the world learned the sickening truth about Jeffrey Epstein, his island, his network, and the powerful men who enabled him, Trump is still here, still running, still rallying, still trying to rewrite history while the evidence piles up around him like a wall of unopened indictments. And this isn't about a handful of awkward photos or casual acquaintances. It's about a pattern, a deep, systemic culture of access, privilege, and protection that allowed predators like Epstein to operate with near total impunity, surrounded by billionaires, politicians, royalty, and yes, former US presidents. Trump's ties to Epstein have been documented for decades. The parties at Mar-a-Lago, the flights aboard the notorious Lolita Express, the grinning boasts in the 90s about Epstein's hot young girls. Back then, it was dismissed as locker room talk. Today, under the glare of survivor testimony and legal evidence, it reads like a confession. Now, fresh revelations, many uncovered by independent journalist Jack Cocchiarella, are dragging those connections back into focus. His years-long investigation into court filings, flight logs, and witness statements paints a damning picture. Trump didn't just know Epstein. He courted him, promoted him, and defended him even after credible allegations emerged. Worse, multiple sources allege that women who accused Epstein of abuse were present at Trump properties during events Trump attended. These aren't whispers or conspiracy posts. They're documented claims buried in depositions, sealed files, and investigative reports that keep getting redacted, delayed, or quietly buried. Yet corporate media keeps looking the other way. Why? Because Trump has perfected the art of distraction. He doesn't need to prove innocence. He just has to shout louder, post more, sue harder, and flood the news cycle with enough outrage to bury the real story. And far too often, the press takes the bait. Imagine if networks didn't flinch at Trump's cease and desist threats. Imagine if truth mattered more than ad revenue. But this is the media landscape we have, where billion-dollar mergers neuter hard-hitting journalism, anchors are muzzled to appease advertisers, and outraged theater shoves investigative reporting off the stage. The result? Epstein and Trump's dark history gets reduced to he said, she said filler before being buried under the next shiny, meaningless controversy. Not everyone is looking away. Stephen Colbert, in a monologue that shook late-night television, dropped what many called an Epstein bombshell. No wild speculation, just a meticulous timeline. Epstein's rise, his access to power, the infamous list of names, and Trump's repeated proximity before and after Epstein's first conviction. Colbert didn't scream or posture. He asked one devastating question: why isn't this being treated like the national emergency it is? The backlash came instantly. Trump loyalists swarmed social media. painting Colbert as a propagandist and an enemy of a great man. But Colbert wasn't alone. He was amplifying the work of independent voices: Cocchiarella, David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, the Young Turks, people who've kept this story alive long after corporate news walked away. They're asking the questions mainstream outlets won't. Why do predators in suits get the softest treatment? Why do men who've never faced their first consequences keep getting second chances? Why is real accountability coming from YouTube channels instead of billion-dollar newsrooms? These aren't rhetorical questions, they're alarms. Because while Trump rages and threatens revenge, the real story grinds forward in courtrooms, in sworn testimony, in the voices of survivors who will not be silenced. Every new fact tears another hole in the myth of Trump as an outsider or victim. He didn't drain the swamp, he thrived in it. Now, as sealed documents crack open, civil suits gain traction, and evidence seeps into the light, the public cannot afford to look away. This is bigger than Epstein. It's about a culture of impunity that shields the powerful, buries the truth, and erases accountability through distraction and delay. If you believe in justice, not theater, back the voices still fighting. Support journalists who refuse to bend, amplify commentators who connect the dots. And if you've read this far, drop a triple blue heart in the comments. Because I'm not moving on, not while the truth is still buried, not while the powerful think they're untouchable, not while there are still people willing to drag this story into the light, no matter how badly the elites want it to stay in the dark.